All right, this is episode 85 of the Sean Lowery Show. My guest on this podcast is Zuby. If you don't know Zuby, he's a rapper. He's also a podcast host. He's been on Joe Rogan, and he got really famous when he set the women's deadlift record, and he's a man. He identified as a woman, and that's part of his story. We talk about that a little bit. A great guy. He grew up all over the place. He has amazing perspectives on the world. He graduated from Oxford, which people call the Harvard of England. I love the conversation with him. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Episode 85 of the Sean Lowery Show. Here we go. All right, welcome everybody. I'm here with Zuby. Zuby, what's going on, man? How are you?
All good, Sean, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast to chat with me a little. I know you're a busy guy, but I've been following you for a while. I saw most people probably found out about you from Joe Rogan. Did you find that to be true?
No, I don't think that's accurate, actually.
No?
I think most people found out about me through Twitter and social media. I mean, that's how Joe Rogan found out about me, and he sort of amplified it. But the majority of people who know me probably realistically know me some way or another through Twitter at this point, sort of directly or indirectly.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I first found out about you on Joe Rogan, but I've been following you on Twitter since, and I love following you. I saw Ricky Gervais tweeted back at you. Was that today or yesterday?
Yeah. He's actually followed me for almost 2 years. He's followed me for about a year and a half now. And he likes my tweets quite often, but I think he doesn't normally publicly reply to stuff in general. I see his likes popping up on my stuff all the time, though, over the years. Okay. So, it was funny. I'm going to see if I can get him on my podcast later this year, actually.
That would be amazing. I love Ricky Gervais. I love Ricky Gervais. Like, Hollywood celebrities are kind of annoying, but he's the guy who puts them in their place and makes fun of them at the Golden Globes.
Yeah, straight up, man. Look, he keeps it real. He's authentic. He's true to himself. And he's willing to rock the boat, and I rock with that totally.
Yeah, he's the man. He's the man. But Hollywood celebrities, I know you talk about them sometimes. How they're just kind of annoying, right?
Kind of
in their liberal bubble out there, kind of.
It's the it's not the liberal. It's not them being liberal specifically. It's more the groupthink and the hypocrisy and the cowardice and the cancel culture and all of that nonsense. If people have different political views, but they can be tolerant, and people can think for themselves, and people can actually just be genuine and authentic, then, whether or not I totally agree, there's nobody I totally agree with in this world, right? I don't even totally agree with myself. This sort of notion that we all have to and should totally agree with each other is completely absurd. And sort of denies reality. So, I don't want to sort of lump all of any group of people in one sort of basket, but when it comes to the entertainment industry in general, it is very much an echo chamber. It is very much a bubble. There is more diversity of opinion than most people actually think, but one side of it is massively subdued. So it's not.
That's really so weird. That's so weird.
It is, but it's also not that surprising if you understand human psychology and if you sort of understand the way industries like entertainment are. You get some of the same thing in tech. There are certain industries which just have a massive lean in one direction, typically in the leftwards direction politically. Mm-hmm. This happens in music. This happens in tech. This happens in Hollywood. This happens in academia. And it means that people who are more right-leaning or more conservative often feel very uncomfortable expressing their views. And, sometimes rightfully so. Sometimes I think it's just cowardice. I think it's mostly cowardice. But you can also see why that exists, right? If you look at this, I don't know if you saw that situation that happened with Gina Carano in the last couple of weeks, where I'm
not familiar with that, actually.
Okay, well, she's an actress. She's probably most famous for being in The Mandalorian. Okay. And, she's more conservative leaning. So they've been trying to sort of axe her for years. They've been trying to get rid of her. They've been trying to cancel her. And, last week she got dropped from The Mandalorian, and she also lost all of her representation based off of an Instagram story post, which was basically saying that hating people for their political views is a dangerous precedent, and that's how things escalate. she used a Holocaust comparison, which some people may say is a little bit overblown, but her point, to anyone sensible, the point wasn't to directly compare it to the Holocaust. It's talking about how the Holocaust didn't happen, within 6 months of Hitler taking power. There was a concentrated effort to demonize a certain group of people, make them seem inhumane, and ultimately justify huge violence against them. And by them sort of coming after her and canceling her for this, they'd actually kind of proved the point that she was making, ironically.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's one example of many, but that's a pretty high profile example.
Yeah. How do they even like justify it? When she got removed from the show, did they say it's because of this specific post?
They claimed the post was anti-Semitic and racist.
Just because it probably had the word Holocaust in it.
It didn't it had the word Jews in it. It didn't even have the word conservative or Republican or anything. It was completely neutral. Like it was something that would run in any direction.
It's crazy.
Right? It could run in the direction of someone who's more conservative hating somebody who's liberal. Right? But because of the climate we live in, people just interpreted it in the dumbest way possible, to be honest, and the most dishonest way possible. And they somehow claimed that it was anti-Jewish and it was racist. And it's ridiculous. It was really stupid. It was very egregious.
Yeah. And the point is so simple. It's just like, you can't hate people for their opinions. Of course not.
Yeah, you shouldn't. It's a dangerous precedent. If you start running around saying that half of America is racist or bigots or Nazis or, white supremacists or white supremacist adjacent or whatever, then, and then you start toying with ideas of, we need to we need to re-educate these people, or we need to do this, or we need to do that, or you're condoning or justifying violence against people, Rush Limbaugh died yesterday, right? People are there, dancing on his grave, celebrating on Twitter. It's freaking awful. A lot of people have lost their humanity over the past decade. I don't know. I have my ideas and hypotheses on that, but there's just a lot of nasty people out there. And, a lot of times in the modern day times, nasty people pretend to be the good guys.
Right.
So, but in my personal opinion, if you are celebrating somebody's death because you disagree with their political opinions, you're not the good guy, period. I don't care what direction that runs in. You're not a good guy.
Yeah. It's just bad to be hateful in general. Yeah. I mean, it's just a bad personal way. If you are going out there being hateful, you're not going to have like success principles of just accepting things that happen, and it's just bad to be hateful. And there's so much of it. And I think you said, that's interesting how you said they play like they're being the good guys.
Oh, geez. Yeah. It happens all the time, right? I mean, that's what the definition of virtue signaling is.
Right.
Right. So, and then you'll have people who get upset by the term virtue signaling, but it's exactly what it is, right? It's hypocrisy, right? Virtue is something that you just do, right? You don't have to talk about it, right? If someone is constantly making an effort and coming out and beating their chest, talking about how good a person they are and how they're on the right side of history and they're on the right side of everything, then as far as I'm concerned, that's the person you need to look out for. Because when people feel like they are absolutely, unquestionably, morally in the right on everything, then there's no limiting principle to how much evil they can commit.
Yeah.
Right? How did what happened? If we are going to talk about, we talked about earlier, if you look at the 20th century, whether you look at Nazism or you look at communism in any of its manifestations, whether that's in the Soviet Union, that's in Vietnam, that's in China, etc., the people who led these genocides, who murdered hundreds of millions of people, they thought they were on the right side of history. They thought they're doing good, right? They're doing this for the greater good, right? We have to kill all these people for the greater good, right? Because of this particular ideology or to reach this goal or whatever, right? And the reason that can happen and why it was so brutal is because they thought they were doing good, right? Like if you have any semblance of a conscience and you are doing something that is cruel or evil or barbaric, it's very limited how far you can go with it, right? Because if I do something bad and I'm like, okay, I know I'm doing something bad, then I stop, right? Because I have a conscience. But if I'm 100% convinced, it's the same thing with terrorists, right? They're so convinced that they are in the right that they will strap a bomb to themselves. They will grab a gun and go shoot people up. They'll do whatever. They'll commit the most horrific acts because they're so certain that they have the moral high ground and they've convinced themselves that everybody else is evil and must be exterminated, essentially. So it's actually an extremely dangerous not just is it arrogant and narcissistic, but actually it's a really dangerous form of thinking in the long term, especially when you get like a group, like a large group with that kind of thinking, because then you just get this sort of the ends justifies the means situations. And whenever you have that, then you're not in a good place.
Right. And they convinced themselves, but also Stalin, Hitler, they convinced a lot of other people too.
Exactly.
So they had reinforcing things that allowed them to continue thinking that. And we know how that ended up for them. But
but people don't study history. You know, most people are pretty ignorant to this stuff, and they don't really look at how it happens. They just assume like, oh, it was just, you know, good guys and bad guys. And it's like, it's not as simple as good guys and bad guys, man. It's like, it's not like 80 years ago. I mean, I've been to Germany a lot of times. Like, Germany's a great country. You know, I've met so many great German people, right? It's not like 80 years ago, everyone in Germany was like a psycho or something.
Right,
like, No, right? They were ordinary people.
And it's easy to justify now for Germany because, I mean, they did kill 6 million Jewish people. So like, if they didn't, if that was out of the equation, I mean, they had some points about like wanting to grow their country, like, but I mean, as far as evil, killing all those people, it's easier to justify now if you just read a headline of history.
Well, people always read history and think that they would have been the good guys, but the truth is they wouldn't have been for the most part. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I mean, if there's one thing that's super become clear in the past year, is that most people would have supported slavery. Most people would have supported the Nazis. Most people would have supported communism, et cetera. And I hate to say that, but it's just the truth. It's the truth.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. As far as virtue signaling, do you think masks have become virtue signaling?
Absolutely. Yep. From early. This happened probably within like 2 or 3 months.
Right.
Absolutely. I think the mask is more of people wear the mask more for social reasons and social pressures than they wear it because of viruses. Right. They're more afraid of the social pressure and potential social repercussions. And perhaps even at this stage, depending on where you are, criminal legal repercussions than they are because of the virus, whether that's catching it or spreading it. That's the truth. I mean,
so I'll admit I 100% wear it because of social pressure. Like, I go to the gym every morning and we have 3 stations, and like in between the stations, you just kind of put it on just so it's, I know how in my head, I'm like, this is so silly. This is doing absolutely nothing, but I'm just like, I don't know. I don't really want to talk to anyone here. I just want to get my workout in.
Yeah. That's what most people do. I don't wear one. I haven't worn one for a very long time.
You don't wear it at all? So I do. And then when I think about it, I mean, I do see the logic of, I think it does stop spread of virus in general.
Assuming you have the virus.
Right.
If you don't, it's not stopping the spread of anything.
Right. If you get tested,
in this insane period where everyone is being treated as if they're ill. Like if you are sick and you're going around and you're coughing and you're spitting or whatever, then logically, wearing a mask would help to, I mean, ideally just stay home. Don't go out. I mean, I've had COVID, right? I just didn't go out. Yeah. You know, I had it for a week, you know, I recovered a month ago. So you know, so when I had it, if I was like feeling sick or whatever, and I had to go out, then yeah, sure, I'll wear a mask. But if I'm perfectly healthy, I'm not going to wear it just to make other people feel good. It's dumb. Like and also, if people can force you to wear a mask, this is why I opposed the mandate from the beginning, because I was saying, look, if they can force you to wear a mask, if they can force the population to wear masks, if they can force them to stay home, they can force them to take a vaccine. They can force them to do whatever, right? It's anyone who's familiar with sales and who's familiar with human psychology will know that it's the concept of like boiling a frog, right? It's a compliance ladder. It's a compliance test. You get people to comply with greater. If you come out on day one and say, okay, we're doing mandatory vaccines, people are going to go, heck no. People are going to revolt.
Right.
But if you come out and you say, wash your hands, everyone's like, okay. And you say, socially distance. Everyone's like, okay. Stay at home. People are like, okay, if it's for the greater good.
Yeah.
Then they're like, wear a mask. Then they're like, please wear a mask. And people are like, okay. And then they're like, wear a mask, right? They drop the please. Right. And this is what happened, right? And people are like, okay. And then they're like, wear a mask or face consequences. Right. And then they'll throw in some guilt tripping as well. And then they say, yep, close your business, do this, do that. And now they're toying with the idea of, hey, if you don't get the vaccine, then you're not going to be allowed to participate in normal society. Right. That's what people are pushing for. I don't know what it's like where you are, but in the UK, and I said this was going to happen 6 months ago. People are there calling me a conspiracy theorist, saying that blah, blah, blah. I'm like, dude, I practice second, third, fourth, fifth order thinking. Like I see where these things are going before they happen. It happens all the time. It doesn't matter. Like people always.
I saw someone say like after 9/11, the security at the airports was absolutely changed.
Oh, dude.
And like if that changed and we're still doing it 20 years later, how long will we still be wearing masks?
Dude, when the government does not like relinquishing power and control once they've got it, right? Since 9/11, it's never been the same. Like I remember flying pre 9/11 and post. It's totally different now.
Right.
It's totally different, right?
I guess, and I always tell me if I should change my philosophy. I do admit I comply just because I have my business to run. I have more important things to do. Like it's not that hard to just throw it on. So like I just choose not to fight that battle.
It's just not hard to. It's not hard to just jab yourself with a needle either.
True.
Just, wear the yellow star.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, that's a very good point. That's a very good point.
It's all the same. It's just a star. Just wear it.
The yellow star. Wow.
Just a star.
That's a very good point.
Right?
I probably would have worn it.
Look, and people, it's like a lot of people. Yeah, I don't know. Like a lot of people didn't get, like even within my own family, didn't get my sort of whole like super anti-mask mandate stance, right? And people also conflate things, right? People think that there are people who think I'm anti-mask and I'm anti-vaccine. And I'm like, no, I am anti-mask mandate. And I am anti-vaccine. I'm anti-mandatory vaccine. If you want to take a vaccine, go ahead. I'm not going to stop you, right? If you want to try to force me to inject a foreign substance into my body, you can screw off.
Yeah, you'll never get it.
I will fight you. Like I will literally physically fight you. If you want to stick a needle in me with some experimental vaccine, like we're going to fight. Like we're going to fight.
Couldn't you argue that like vaccines stop polio and they've done a lot of good in the past for like certain things, like polio's gone now? I mean,
they also gave some people polio.
Did they?
Yes.
I never heard that part. I never heard that part.
Of course you didn't. Have you heard of the people who have died after taking this one?
I haven't. I heard a couple people.
I've heard of at least 5.
Really?
Yep.
Okay. Wow. The best comparison.
I've heard of more. Dude, like it's like I said, everything has a risk. Like, I mean, in our age group, okay? How old are you?
I'm 31.
You're 31. Okay. So if you get COVID, what's the probability of you dying?
0. I think I probably had it. My wife had it. I had a sniffle for a day.
It's essentially 0.
Right.
Okay. So, and what are the long-term effects of the vaccine?
Obviously, we don't know.
Okay. So what is, for you specifically, what is the rational position to take?
I'm not taking it.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So this is what I'm saying. Okay. If you're 90 years old, and maybe the chance of you dying from COVID, if you get, I mean, even still, COVID's not a death sentence, man. Like even if you're at the most at risk, maybe it's like a 10%, let's say, right? You got a 1 in 10 chance of dying. If you're in that category and you want to, then sure. Like, it's people have different, our entire lives. The weirdest thing about the past year is people have like entirely forgotten how the world has been running for the past several decades. Okay. Viruses have always existed. Always. Every year there's the flu season. I think the flu kills 60,000 Americans a year.
Right.
Nobody even bats an eyelid. Nobody does anything, right? People just get on with their lives. You don't shut down the schools. You don't shut down businesses. No one's running around with masks or whatever. Viruses are just a part of life. Right. And they mutate and they change, right? That's why you can catch the cold every year. You can keep getting the flu because they mutate, they change. Right now, people are freaking out with this virus because it's like, oh, there's a new strain. Just like, of course there's a new strain, right? A virus is trying to survive. It's evolving so that it can survive. So, and then people also practice this binary thinking. So when I start talking like this, people are like, oh, so you just want to like let it rip through the population and let everyone die. And I'm like, no, we know who it kills, right? If you're over the age of say 65, 70, you're much more at risk than anyone younger, right? Young people are not dying of this thing, like extremely rare.
All right, yeah. So tell me what you think I should do in this situation. So I'm with you on this. I'm with you on this thinking. And like I said,
I'm passionate about this.
Yeah, I love it. And I believe in it. But like I said, I have decided not to. I've just put it on because And I mean, I'm open-minded to doing it. But I said I would not take the vaccine. I have no reason to. Now, what if they say you can't get on this airplane for your buddy's bachelor party unless you like have taken the vaccine?
We need to boycott the heck out of any airline that does that and make sure they go broke and go out of business.
Okay. So I don't think they've done that yet, as far as I know.
I don't think every airline would do that because
people wouldn't like it.
No.
Right.
No,
so if I have to sign that paper, I'm just driving. I'm driving to the thing then. All
Or
right,
look, and
I
they're gonna
agree.
if they push that hard, they're gonna create a gigantic black market. They're gonna create a huge black market as well. Like just being straight up. Like I don't think things will go that far. I do think people will. I do think and hope. Like I don't know in the UK. Like the UK is a little hopeless in this regard. But I'm totally
Yeah.
willing to. I'm totally willing. I'm gonna relocate anyway. But
Yeah.
you know, I
Coming to
don't think
America?
we'll see. We'll see. I'll keep it quiet for now. But yeah, I mean, in a country like the USA, I don't think they'd. I don't think that would fly. The Americans are much more liberty oriented and
Okay.
much more government skeptical than people in the
Yeah.
UK are. So
Yeah, I
it's a
agree
bit
with
different.
that. Like I love the USA. I mean, we fight. Like I consider myself like a centrist, and maybe I need to be more. You know, I'm a business person. I focus on that. I have strong
Yeah.
opinions there, and I'm interested in politics and love talking about it. Like, do you consider yourself conservative?
I don't care. Like
You don't care.
I consider myself a free thinker. I'm a
Right.
by most people's measures, I'd be considered conservative / libertarian in the UK or in the USA. I grew up in Saudi Arabia. In Saudi Arabia, I'd be considered a progressive or a liberal. My family's from Nigeria. In Nigeria, I'd probably be considered a moderate to liberal.
I love
So
that.
as far as I'm
Same
concerned,
philosophy, different
same
places,
philosophy,
different
countries.
title.
Exactly. Same
That's
views in every
wild.
country. But what is considered conservative or liberal is relative. It's not, these are not absolute, they're not absolute terms, right? If you took someone who was a liberal, say like a liberal sort of standard Democrat voter in the year 2000, and their views have not changed, then in 2021, they're a conservative now.
Yeah.
Right?
That's crazy.
They're a conservative now.
And that's why, I mean, it's bad to be on a team because then you just get stuck in that thing. So the free thinking element, that's why I do not like to label myself. I'd like to say I'm an independent or just a non-party because then I can
That's fine.
keep my mind open to whatever side is working better.
And the truth is, the truth is that's what most people are. Like most people don't even vote. Most people don't even vote, right? There's something I said on Rogan where I think I said, you know, we're living in a time where gender is a spectrum, but politics is binary, right? Where people are like, you know, which are you, liberal or conservative, left or right, red or blue? And I'm like, are those the only two? These are the only two options, right?
That's
We've
so
got
true.
7 billion people in the world, and there's 2 political opinions. Like, does that even make sense? No, right? Depending on the issue, people have, you know, you'll have some people who are like very, you know, mostly conservative. You'll have some people who are like mostly liberal or mostly progressive, but most people issue to issue.
Exactly.
Yeah, if you know, you might have a general sort of philosophy. So someone like myself, who's pretty libertarian, like who thinks the government should do a lot less, that impacts my views on most things, right? So you might be able to sort of predict someone's leanings in that regard, but I'm also very open-minded, right? So I'm willing to have conversations. I'm willing to debate people, agree, disagree, whatever. You know, I've got 4 siblings. I'm from a big family. We all have somewhat different views. You know, there's stuff we all agree on. There are certain things we'll disagree on. Within my friendship group, I'm the most like libertarian person by a mile.
Yeah.
Like, by a mile. Like, I'm constantly calling my best friends like statists and even authoritarians, right? Because they think the government.
But you're
should
still
do this.
Friends.
And the government, oh God, I love them.
Yeah.
Man. You know, they think the government should do this and the state should do that, and we should have this law and that. And I'm like, guys, like, why do you want so many laws? Like, you don't need a law for everything. Like the state is not your friend. The government is not your friend. The worst atrocities in the world, every awful thing that has ever happened in history happens because of the government, right?
Yeah.
All of it, whether you're talking, if you look at the USA, slavery, Jim Crow, segregation, freaking KKK, like all it's all from the government or condoned by the government. Like even all
the good things that have happened, like Apple and like railroads, like and all the amazing technology comes from like the free market.
Yeah, look, like if you in every country, look at apartheid in South Africa, like all these genocides we talked about, the Holocaust. The Holocaust can't happen without the government.
Yeah.
Right. The Holodomor cannot happen without the government. All of these atrocities, because even if you take something like racism, okay, without the government, without the state, racism is just a bad idea.
I mean, that's
just
interesting. Let me think about that. I mean, obviously, I don't care about. I get mad because I don't care about skin color at all. It's so irrelevant.
Yeah, of
and
course.
then the people that are not they're not racist. They're so against racism. They care about skin color. And that always is weird with me.
Oh, anti-racism is just the new racism. So don't worry.
Yeah. So you said, yeah. So what's the thing you said again? You said,
look, without the state,
without the state,
without the
government's
teeth of
just
the
a bad
state,
idea.
Without the teeth of the state, racism is just a bad idea.
So they're the ones that implement, or it's just an idea, though.
What are the most racist? What are the most biggest atrocities? Like I said, what are the greatest atrocities that have happened in the past several hundred years? Yep. What else?
Okay, you're saying that was government, right? I mean, the Holocaust, the ones you just mentioned, the Great Leap,
all of them,
all that stuff. Yeah,
it's all government. Like people are like, oh, Zuby, why are you libertarian? I'm like, dude, every horrific thing is like. Right. Like
so like I talk.
Okay, go ahead.
I hear you, and I talk to people, and I say, okay, so all those laws that the government did have that were bad, they are now gone. None of the laws have anything to do with skin color, and like I do trust, like if there's a federal ruling on something, like I trust it in general, you know. And then they say, yeah, but there's still structural racism and people can't get ahead because of their skin color. And I'm
because of the government's previous actions.
Yeah, the government. True, because of the government's previous actions. Yeah,
this is what I mean. Like that's why I'm always confused when people are like, okay, we need like more government and more state and more. I'm like, dude, how many times and in how many countries do they need to like? And this, to be honest, regardless of somebody's political opinions, right? If I'm talking to someone who's much more like, I don't know, say left leaning, right? Say I'm talking to like someone who even like, you know, thinks that Donald Trump is like some, you know,
Hitler,
Nazi or Hitler,
evil,
right?
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so why do you want him? If you think Trump is Hitler, if you believe that, right? I'm going to go with your argument for a moment. Then why do you want to give him and his administration more power and more control and more authority over your life? Why do you, right? People will say Trump is Hitler, and then they'll say in America, right? UK doesn't have a Second Amendment, but in the US, people will be like, we need more gun control. We need to restrict the Second Amendment. It's all right. Okay. So you want to give Hitler your guns.
Yeah.
Right. So you want to give Hitler your guns now. Right. And people,
how do they respond? I don't know.
Most people don't think about this stuff, right? So I'm just like, look, you can't kind of have both of these things. Either you have trust and faith in the government and you think that they're benevolent and they want the best for you, et cetera, regardless of which party is running. And most people don't really believe that. Or yeah, you should probably sort of advocate for them to be smaller, because then regardless of who wins, then it doesn't matter, right? Like every American election, half the country is viewing it as an existential threat.
I hate
that. Whereas if the government were like smaller and had less control and authority over your life, regardless of who's in power, you wouldn't really care. I mean, entrepreneurs like myself, yourself, you probably don't really care that much.
You know, the tax rate like might fluctuate a little bit, but you know, I'm not gonna
little changes, but you're not thinking that, oh my gosh, they might come to my house in jackboots and you know, which they're not going to do anyway. But you know, people get so worried, so hyped up and amped up in it. And I'm the same. Like I'm here in the UK. The government has had the ridiculous response to this whole pandemic situation, and people are still there. You know, one minute they're saying Boris is terrible, I don't trust the government, the Tories this, the Tories that, and then 2 seconds later they're saying, oh, I need to obey every single thing the government said, and we must follow that. And I'm like, dude, you yourself are telling me you don't trust these people. So why are you like, who do you trust more with your health? Yourself, or some random government official who doesn't even know who you are? Right? Trust yourself with your health, right? If you get sick, then okay, the UK has an NHS, and you know, hopefully that functions decently.
I mean, it really is like get a life, and not like, it sounds mean, but like control yourself internally.
Control yourself, man. Yeah.
Like headline. You're bopping around. You're trying to fit in. You're trying to have everyone not be mad at you, but you're also trying to be safe. And you're just like, just center yourself, have your own opinions, stick to them, and don't worry about it. Find something that you're more interested in than reading these headlines every day. Yeah. There's a lot, and then you go out. I think protesting, right? Protesting is, I think it's so like funny. First of all, I will say, it seems pretty fun. I haven't gone out and protested at all, but come on, just going out there like with a bunch of people running around. I get the appeal of it, but they have nothing. Like Black Lives Matter, I don't think they have a specific thing that they're asking for. Tell me what you think about this. I think a lot of the people that are protesting, they have like a culture maybe within their family or something, like years past, their generations before them, their grandparents, maybe their parents, they marched with MLK, they protested and made change. And at that point in time, there were things that needed to be changed. And they have so much family pride in the fact that they protested and they changed the world, and they have had that passed down through stories in their family. Now, in this day and age, they want that feeling. They want to go protest and create change and get that same feeling so they can pass it down to generations of their family. Do you think that's true? And if it is, like, how would you break that cycle if there's actually nothing to protest against?
I think it's true. I think it's less I think it's less familial. And I think it's more like people looking at history and feeling like they themselves want to be heroes, right? Everybody wants to be, a lot of people feel like they want to be heroes. And a lot of people have a sort of activist type personality, let me say. I think there's a certain type of personality that makes somebody want to be an activist or feel like they're fighting for a cause, or they're fighting against something. There's some dragon that they want to slay. Now, the truth is, in 2021, most of those dragons are lizards at best, maybe geckos. And all those big, hard fights have already been fought, and they've already been won. And people don't really want to admit that. That's why people even have to change definitions, right? That they're trying to change the definition of racism, change the definition of white supremacy, change the definition of sexism, misogyny, et cetera, to make the charge a lot lower, right? So white supremacy means that somebody believes that the so-called white race is inherently superior to all others. That's what white supremacy means, right? You're talking Nazis, you're talking KKK. They believe the white people are superior to, black people, Jewish people, Asians, Arabs,
Jewish people who are white mostly.
Yeah, that one sort of is but that's what white supremacy is supposed to mean.
Right.
These days, right, in 2021, with the dilution, I call it label inflation, they're now saying white supremacy just means, having a lot of white people on TV or in a magazine or in a boardroom or whatever, right? They've just diluted the term completely, which I think is quite dangerous, actually. So people are throwing around this term, white supremacy. I'm like, what are you even talking about?
Yeah.
Right? Like, is the KKK making a comeback? Because if not, then shut up. Right.
Yeah.
And people do this with all these different terms. So, and then, with feminism, you've now got the patriarchy, I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, if you live in if you want to talk about, I don't know, Iran or Saudi Arabia or something, and you want to make the argument that there's a patriarchy there, I'm like, okay, I'm listening. But if you live in Los Angeles, if you live in New York City, I'm like, just stop. Like, right. Just stop. This is not to say that racism does not exist or sexism does not exist or any of these isms or phobias do not exist, but
it's not prominent.
Firstly, it's not, to pretend it's like it was in 1920. People are being ridiculous. You'll hear people say ridiculous things like, oh, racism is still the same. No, the USA is just as racist as it always was. It just changed. It's just more subtle now.
So if these people are always going to label, I love it. Yeah. They're always going to label inflate, like you said. It seems like it's always going to happen. Like, do you think in 20 years they'll even have a new thing or a small, even like dilute it down even more? I mean, or is there a way to get through to them and maybe get rid of that philosophy? Or it seems like there's always going to be something to complain about. They're going to find it. They're going to protest. They're going to call you racist. It's annoying.
Look, man, I think the best way to push back against it is to actually push back against it. Yeah. Right. People for a long time with a lot of these things have thought they can just like stay out of it and maybe let like a few bold and courageous people speak on their behalf. Me being one of them. There's a lot of people that kind of just let Zuby speak on his behalf, let him take all the arrows, let him take all the mobs or whatever. And I'm like, yo, if you actually want to enact change, like if you are tired of some of these things that are seeping in, then you need to do your own bit in your workplace, in your school, in your university, in wherever you are. Then if you find something that you're worried about or you're concerning, or your kids are coming back from school and they're learning that because they're white, they're evil, or they're learning because they're black, they're inherently oppressed, or that, they should be in segregated spaces based on their race, or like, if you're seeing that, then you need to push back against it. You can't just sit there and be like, oh, I don't like this, but I'm not going to do anything because I don't want to rock the boat, because that's how it happens. It only takes 1% of the population to cow the other 99%. All it takes. That's all it takes.
Like,
right. So
I don't have any of it like in my workplace or something, but you made a good point. You made a good point about kids like that, because that is them learning, and it's also like the curriculum. So like I would definitely go have a talk with the teacher. I can't think of anything more harmful than telling like a young black kid that you are not like equal, and you're always going to be treated unfairly. It's like it's a very bad thing for a young mind to be told that you are a victim. It's just changes the way you look at things. It changes how high you can go, and it's just such a bad attitude to always not blame yourself. Blaming yourself or taking responsibility for yourself is one of the keys to being happy, being successful, and it's kind of taking that away from him. And I would be mad if I had a kid and he was
for real. It's removing people's agency, and it's pernicious, and you're installing guilt into people who shouldn't feel guilty or anything, right? Like nobody should be made to feel guilty or lesser than or oppressed or whatever by something that has nothing to do with them, right? I think it's just as horrible to tell a black kid that he is inherently oppressed by white people as it is to tell a white kid that they are inherently oppressors. Number one, it's not true. Number one, it's just false. It's BS, right? It's nonsense. It's not true. Like
they're like 5. They didn't do anything. Like,
even if they're 20, right? Unless you yourself have done something,
right,
then you're not guilty of. Like, imagine if the legal system worked like that, right? Someone I don't know, someone in your neighborhood gets murdered, and they're like, oh, who was the suspect? And they're like, I don't know, he was a white guy, he was wearing a blue collared shirt, and he had brown hair, right? And they just come and arrest you. You're like, hey, I didn't do it. They're like, nope, you fit the description, right? And you're like, I'm not guilty. I didn't do it, right?
Did that happen to you?
And this is what people are doing, right? They're putting blame and guilt on people for things that they didn't do. Oftentimes they weren't even born when the things that they're being blamed for happened. And I'm just like, this is insanity. So number one, it's not even factually correct. Number two, it's just morally deficient. Like it's a wrong thing to do. You're putting ideas in people's heads that are going to create resentment, that are going to limit their own sort of autonomy and ability to take responsibility. You're going to create unnecessary division and hostility and suspicion. You're going to create limiting beliefs and stuff like that. I mean, thank God. One thing I'm grateful my parents never taught me. My parents never taught me that because I'm black, that life is going to be really hard for me, or that the world is against me, or white people are against me, or anyone is against. I never, ever learned any of that. And I'm, thank God.
You think it's had a big effect on who you are?
Yes, I do.
Like, I'm sure. I'm sure. And a lot of parents now, like, or over the past 10 years or whenever, might tell their kids the opposite, and that might have the effect on them, and especially in America. Like,
of course, because it creates resentment. And the truth is that once you believe something, it's really, we all know this, right? It's once somebody believes something, whatever it is, it's really hard to get them not to.
Yeah.
Right. So if you believe that America is structurally, institutionally, systemically racist, that there's still a big problem with white supremacy, that white people just in general are kind of out to get you or putting their foot down on you or something, right? Then once somebody believes that, they view the whole world through that matrix.
I feel bad for them, yeah.
And there are millions of people in America like this, right? And they view the world through that lens, and they will interpret things as racism when they're not. They will interpret things as aggressions or hostility or whatever when they're not. They'll be looking at certain people with suspicion, ironically based on their skin color, just because of this worldview that they have. And it's a really, really destructive mindset. And it doesn't need to be, this transcends race. This goes into everything, right? If you have a certain mentality and certain limiting beliefs, say you believe that, I don't know, take something like money. Say you believe that money is really, really difficult to make, that it's really hard to go from, it's virtually impossible to go from poor to being rich. Either you're just born rich or you're born poor and you just stay there. If you believe that your amount of money you earn always has to be tied to your time or how many hours you work. If you have all of these limiting beliefs about money, if you believe that, taking on debt to buy things you can't afford is okay or is good, then that's going to impact you. It's going to impact you until you change that mindset. And it's hard to, until you change that mindset.
Right.
Like you're going to be broke. You're going to be in debt. You're never going to be rich. You're never going to be wealthy. You're never going to be successful, et cetera. If you talk to someone who's a successful entrepreneur, successful entrepreneurs know that it's easy to make money. You believe that money is abundance. Money is easy to make. Look, there's people making millions, people making billions. Like money is everywhere. I just got to create a product. I just got to create a service. I got to do something that people value, and I will be paid.
Yep.
Right. And I can invest. I can put money into this. I can double it, and I can triple it, and I can send it. Right. And these people live in the same world.
Right.
They live in the same world.
Same roads.
Yep.
Same
they could even be born in the same neighborhood.
Right.
They could be from the same socioeconomic class. They could come from similar family structures
beliefs.
Or whatever, but it's just beliefs. So this one, you take two guys who are raised in, say single parent families, grew up without a lot of money, not in a great environment, whatever. Maybe they even got involved in some bad stuff. And they have these two different mindsets. And within 10 years, this guy has gone off and created a business, and he's earning 6 or he's earning 7 figures, and he's doing well, and he's happy and he's successful. This one is just, 20 years later, 30 years later, these limiting beliefs are just keeping them stuck where they are. So I think the most important thing we can do, and something I try to do a lot, is to just shift people's mindsets, whether it's in fitness, whether it's in business, whether it's in money, whether it's in whatever it is, just nudge them in a better direction, because there's a lot of things in society and in the world and a lot of other people who are pushing them the other way. And for some reason, we live in this time where being a victim is trendy, right? Hating on rich people is trendy. Hating on capitalism is trendy. Hating on achievement is trendy. And I'm just like, no.
Why is that trendy?
No.
Why is that trendy? My favorite story was Jussie Smollett. I had to take a while to process it, because I was like, wait, he did something that was bad for him to look better. And like after that, I kind of was like, it took me a little while to process it. But then once it came out, it was like my favorite story, because I feel like everyone kind of agreed, like, ooh, that guy's an asshole. Like both sides. I thought it was a uniting story. But that's so weird to think, okay, I want to go out and get more credibility. I need to be more of a loser.
More of a victim. Not even a loser, just a victim.
But it's like a loser think in a way. Like,
and it's bizarre, because that's somebody who's also already successful.
Yes.
Right? So it's weird, because you can actually have someone who is actually successful in a good position, but they still have a victim mentality, which is bizarre. Like, they've achieved all this stuff, but they still have this victim mentality. Or if they themselves don't have it, they are sort of capitalizing off of people who do, by kind of running with that narrative. So instead of saying, hey, look at me, like I came from this situation and I got out of it and I'm doing well for myself. So you can do it too. Instead, they're sort of peddling the opposite, right? They've come out of that situation, but they're still pushing this victim narrative. One thing I really love about, obviously me being a rapper, one thing I love about hip hop and rap in general, actually, as a sort of meta narrative beyond the sort of superficial lyrics that you might get in certain kinds of rap, even if they're negative. One thing I love is the meta narrative, especially with a lot of American hip hop artists, of going from rags to riches, going from nothing to something, right?
Yeah,
you've
get
got
money.
Yeah, you got dozens of artists, hundreds of artists who did not grow up in good circumstances,
right?
And then they made something out of themselves. They worked hard. They were consistent. They applied certain principles, and now they're balling, right? Now they're making millions, and they're having fun, and they're doing this, and they're doing, like, I love that narrative, and that's actually a lot of people ask me about, the messages and themes that you might get in a lot of hip hop and rap music. I kind of feel like there's almost two narratives going on to me. There's the sort of direct narrative, which is the exact words that rapper is saying on that particular song.
Right.
Which, sometimes I think
drugs,
are cool.
girls.
Sometimes I'm like,
I love the lyrics. I don't take them literally.
Yeah,
I don't take them literally.
Yeah, exactly. It's entertainment, but also there's a meta narrative as well, right? I think oftentimes with rappers, sometimes people ask me, do you think rappers should be role models? And I think oftentimes it's better to look at what they do rather than what they say.
Right. The confidence of rappers is amazing. That's such good to instill in somebody. And then, of course, the rags to riches and like, I don't care about this. I don't care about that. It's all about, it's me. It can come off selfish a little bit, but there's nothing wrong with a little bit of selfishness, especially if you're like in a little victim mentality. Like, no, like I need to take care of myself. I love rap, man. Like it's my favorite. I love when you talk to. I've been listening to you since you were coming on the podcast. I don't know your music. I don't know your music like as well as I know you from like podcasting and stuff. But I'm going to be listening to it more now. I love when you talk to Ben Shapiro about rap music. I like Ben Shapiro. But he's super nerdy, and like you were like the perfect person to kind of talk to.
Well, I'm honored to be the person who shifted his perspective on that. So.
I don't know if he shifted. I think he still kind of did. It
did. Yeah, he got asked about it, and he was giving a talk at a university before the whole Corona shutdown, and someone actually asked him specifically about that, and he said that I did change.
He said that Zuby changed my mind.
He said he's still not a rap fan, but that Zuby got him to accept that it's a form of music at least.
Awesome. That's a big deal. That's a big deal to shift Ben Shapiro. That's awesome. Yeah, and you were on Ben Shapiro for your famous weightlifting. The British power lifter. Was it deadlift? You set the record by being a girl for a day. Like that was kind of the first headline I heard about you, like I said, on Joe Rogan. But that drew me in. And then now I listen to your podcast and the rap and stuff.
Thank you.
Do you think that is still like the gender issue? Like I feel like it kind of peaked back like 2016, 17. And I feel like between you and like other people, I feel like that's not as much of a thing anymore where like people are trying to put women's and men's sports.
Well, Joe Biden just made an executive order.
That was my thought like a couple weeks ago. And like then there was that, did you see the girl Sarah Fuller? She's a college football kicker.
Oh, is she the one who kicked in the NFL or no?
No, she kicked in college football. She was in college football. She played for, I think it was Vanderbilt or somewhere in the South. And the kicker at Corona, and she was on the team. She was a soccer player. Her name was Sarah Fuller. And the media was trying to hype this up as like a Jackie Robinson style story. And I was excited for it. I turned it on. I got a buzz from ESPN on my phone, and it said, Sarah Fuller, first woman kicker in college football. So I turned it on. I was like, okay, this is cool. And she kicked it. And it was a terrible kick. It was a terrible kick. I did hear about
this. Maybe I thought it was NFL, but it was actually college.
Yeah, it was big time college football. It was. It wasn't like some small school. It was big time college football. And then that story, I saw a couple people in the media try to make it into a Jackie Robinson thing. And she did get some type of medal and some type of praise for it. But I haven't heard the story so much anymore. Like, I don't think she's moving on. I don't think more people are trying to get girl kickers. But what was Joe Biden's thing that he passed? It was Title IX and something like that.
I think he passed an executive order that would basically allow trans women who are biological males to compete in female sports. It's not fair to the girls. You made that point. Under the guise of being, anti-discrimination based on gender identity and all that usual sort of language.
All right. Well, I guess I'm wrong then, because I was thinking it was getting a little better, but it's funny. The news has been so less exciting. I feel like I forgot about politics. Trump riled everyone up. I liked him. I thought he was funny. I feel like he does not get enough credit for his sense of humor and how funny he was.
Funny dude. He's a funny. I think Trump is hilarious. I think Trump is hilarious.
Yeah,
I was saying. And
go ahead.
Yeah, I was saying yesterday that they should. I think I tweeted something like they should impeach Trump again. I don't know why exactly, but that never stopped them before. No, without Trump, politics is boring, man.
Right. That's why I didn't even pay attention to the Title IX thing, or whatever it was, the transgender. But I was tweeting with you or DMing, and I said British politics and American politics. Since you're British, do you pay more attention? You're like, America is kind of the global spectrum for politics. Do you feel the same way? That it's got a little more, I don't know, tame. I think boring is the word for U.S. politics.
Yeah, Joe Biden is boring, man. That guy's just boring. Like,
Yeah.
there's nothing interesting apart from when he says something which is ridiculous, which he does quite often.
And part of me has kind of liked it a little bit. The fact that it's not on the top of every single subject and every single conversation.
No, I think that's a good thing. I think the best thing that can happen from a Biden-Harris presidency. I mean, look, Kamala Harris is going to end up being president, but I'm calling that.
I don't know. I don't know about
but,
her. I'm nervous about her. But
yeah, I think that was the point all along. But yeah, no, look, I don't think politics should be. I think one of the worst things of the last 4 or 5 years is that politics became mainstream entertainment, which it shouldn't. Like politics. Sure, it can be entertaining to a degree, and there might be some interesting characters in there, but I don't think people got too obsessed with it.
Right.
And this happened, it happened because, people either, a lot of people, Trump was polarizing. Some people love him, some people hate him. He's a big character regardless.
Right.
The media love him. Even the media that hate him, they love him because he makes the money. Right. They can just go on his Twitter and they've got their stories for the day. Yeah. So, but I think that overall for a society, it's not healthy for people to be overly obsessed with politics. Right?
Yeah.
I think the ideal political system is the one you don't really notice. Right. Like you just, it's like what I want my politicians to do for me is mostly nothing.
Right.
Right. That's actually like my personal ideal. Like the less I notice the government, like right now I'm raging at the government because they're trying to force people to stay home, and they're forcing businesses to shut, and they've forced all the gyms to close, and they're forcing this, and they're forcing the right. I'm just like, yo, leave me alone.
Right.
I'm not asking you for something. I'm not saying, hey, like, give me money. I'm not saying, hey, give me a job. Hey, I'm like, no, I'm good. But just leave me alone. Like liberty, freedom, like my basic civil rights.
Yeah.
Just leave me alone. Let me talk. Yeah. Let me walk. Let me move. Let me see my parents. Let me see my family. Let me see my friends. Let me go to the gym. Let me go shopping. Just buzz off and leave me alone.
Yeah.
Right? That's not unique to this situation. That's my position in general. I'm just like, leave me alone, run the military and like, police and make sure the roads are good and, those basic things. And then beyond that, I'm like,
yeah, I really think that factor, the one we're talking about, is the difference between Trump winning and losing. Like enough people were like, okay, maybe I like some of his policies. Maybe I even kind of like him, but God, I'm so sick of talking about this every single day. Like I know a few people in Pennsylvania, which is a swing state, that voted for him the first time and then didn't vote for him the second time. And just because that was kind of the main reason, they're like, I'm just sick of talking about it. And I was like, yeah. And I think it made a difference. And then the other thing I thought was interesting about the last election, get your opinion on, is there was a big split with the people who voted for Trump. I voted for him. And then the people who said he got cheated out of the election. Like there was a split, like the Capitol riots, and even like Candace Owens, who I know you've talked to before, and like Charlie Kirk, like some voices who I respect. They really went hardlined on he got cheated out of this. This is not real. It's rigged. Mm-hmm. And I was looking at it as an average American, and I was like, well, I do know people who voted for him last time, didn't vote for him this time. I think he just lost by a certain amount of votes. Politics is close. It was a beautiful day that day. It was a beautiful weather day, and I think more people went out and voted because, and they say that's better for Democrats. Like I think he just got like a bad beat. He lost, and then I was so interested in seeing these people go with this like rigged thing. Yeah. I was curious to get your opinion on that. Are they brainwashed by Trump, or what's their reason for being so one-sided on that? Or storm the Capitol?
I think it's important to recognize, I think we live in a time where people have really short-term memories, right? And you have to remember that a massive number of the Democrat politicians and Democrat voters did the same thing in 2016. Right? Yeah. How long was it that people were running with the Russia hoax?
True.
Trump is not my president. Trump is an illegal president, right? They were running with that for 3 years.
It's a good point. The Russia hoax just confused me so much.
The Russia collusion.
What is this story?
He was installed by Putin. He's like, right? So they want to call people conspiracy theories now because it's the other side.
Right.
But it's like, the truth is, a lot of people are hyper-partisan. Some people are hyper-partisan. And if you are, then you're going to be willing to look, if you're a super staunch Democrat and the Republicans win, it's going to be very easy to convince you that some foul play took place, especially if there's like if there's a bit of smoke, right? If there and
Right.
on election, that whole election week,
Yeah.
there was a lot of weird
Mail-in,
stuff
it
going
was-
on. Yeah, there was a lot of weird stuff going on.
There
Okay,
was smoke.
Trump is massively in the lead, and then
Right.
suddenly like whoop, like there's a vertical
Right.
line for there was some questionable stuff, right? Why
There
haven't
was.
they announced those certain states, right? They announced
Right.
this state, they announced that state, and then all the ones that mattered, it's taking forever to count the votes. Like,
Right.
there was a lot of dodgy
There was
stuff there,
smoke.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was smoke. So you can see how someone who's partisan is gonna easily, whether that's them believing that Russia got
Right.
involved and Russia installed Trump and they stole it from Hillary,
True.
which huge. They were talking about that in mainstream media for years.
That
right?
was so
and
dumb.
now
Yes.
and now those people are playing dumb and they're like, oh my gosh, look at these crazy MAGA people.
That's a good point.
Who are, right? So I'm just like,
That's a good point.
I have a long-term memory. I'm like, hey, y'all. I'm not saying either side is right in doing this. I'm just saying y'all did this too.
Yeah.
Right? So
Good
don't
point.
suddenly, So don't suddenly be like, oh my gosh, we've never seen this before. This is crazy.
Right,
What
right.
if Trump had won, there would be millions of Democrat voters saying that he stole it.
Right.
Fact.
Right.
There just would be. Right.
Right.
How many? I don't know, but it would be in the millions. People would be
Right.
claiming somehow like there's no way he won again. Right. They didn't believe he won the first time. Right. So if he'd won again, it would be like, there was something they'd have a new narrative, right?
Right.
Russia collusion.
Right.
They tried the Ukraine one already. Like they've done Russia, they've done Ukraine. They'll pick another country. I don't know, Serbian collusion. So people are, people do have biases, right?
Right.
People do have biases, and I think that it's okay to have biases, but you should recognize them.
Right.
Right. You should recognize them. If you have biases in certain ways, which literally everybody does, then I think it's fine to just acknowledge them. I sort of feel the same way with the media in general. So if an outlet is like openly liberal or openly
Mhm.
progressive, then I don't mind, right? They're kind of they sort of announce their bias, and then you can read everything, okay, knowing, okay, this is going to have a bit of a slant to it,
Right.
right? The Daily Wire, openly
They admit
conservative,
it. Yeah.
openly conservative, right? So if you're reading articles on the Daily Wire or you're listening to their podcast, you understand this is going to have a conservative slant to it, right? And then you can do with that what you want. What I don't like is when there is an obvious slant, say in either direction, but they're claiming to be neutral and down the middle, right? So this is why stuff like I can't stand CNN, right? CNN claims to be neutral, down the middle, not.
And a lot of people believe that. Yeah, like average
exactly,
people,
right? Millions of people believe that, but it's like it's just not true, right? It's false, right? You go on there, like I don't know what they're like right now, but they were just the anti-Trump channel. You watch their pundits, you're just like, come on, guys, they're not even subtle about it.
Yeah,
it's not even like
it's
close. Yeah, it's not even like it's a slight. Like they're just openly saying stuff. They're even telling lies on there. They're spewing propaganda. So
not subliminally, just straight up.
No, they're just straight up saying, like Don Lemon and all the dude, man. I'm just like, come on, man. Like if you're gonna, Don Lemon's there talking about how he's not a partisan and how he's not a Republican nor a Democrat. He's just someone who talks the facts. I'm like, bro, stop lying.
Shut up.
Like, just stop lying. Just say, yes, I'm liberal. I'm Democrat. I don't like Trump, whatever. And people then are like, okay, fair enough.
Right.
That's the rhetoric you're kind of gonna get.
And then I was thinking maybe some of the people like Candace Owens, for example, and maybe like a Ted Cruz, like maybe they just kind of stuck with that narrative because that's like a big voter block for them. So maybe if you have like political aspirations, you have to kind of pick your positions a little more strategically. And you think Candace Owens, like, you think she'd run for president? I heard some jabber about that.
I don't know. I mean, she's still young.
She's very young.
She's about, I don't know, late 20s or maybe 30.
Yeah. I think she's my age.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I haven't spoken to her. I haven't spoken to her about it, but maybe at some time in the future. I don't know.
And Kanye West, maybe.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about Kanye West because I saw you were on Tucker Carlson and he was talking to you about it. And dude, I love Kanye. And first of all, I loved his music. And then I loved when he came out just saying like, screw what the liberals think, like think for yourself, free thinking. Love that thing. He actually had one political rally, right? And it was in South Carolina. Did you see that at all? He had the vest on.
I did. Yes.
I was at that.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. I was
when he broke down.
It was weirder. Yes, he broke down in tears, crying about thinking about the possibility of aborting his baby. And it was weirder there was only like 200 people there. This was like kind of peak COVID. And I think he wanted it to be small, but it was weirder than the media even portrayed it. The whole event was super weird. He didn't really have a plan. He just came out, he started ranting, he brought a few people up on stage. But one thing I liked about it is I love the audience there. There was young people, old people, conservative people, liberal people, all different races. Like, I think that's what I like about it, is that he kind of pulls from like a general audience. Mm-hmm. But what do you think about him lately? Like, I feel like he was peaking when he put out Jesus is King. And everything was going great, but like then he was supposed to put out that next album and never did it. And then it's like you hear about divorce and like the mental health. Like, do you think mental health, when they say that about Kanye, is true, or do you just think that's the media trying to spin something about him?
I think it's a I think it's both. I don't think it's an either or. I think Kanye West probably does have some. I mean, he himself said he was diagnosed with bipolar.
Yeah, he's wacko, man, but like in a good way.
Yeah. Look, Kanye has always been a little bit, a little bit off his rocker, especially since his mom,
Right.
Especially since his mom passed away. Like, there was a switch.
Right.
So, to what degree that's an actual mental issue or something, like, I don't know. That's outside of my wheelhouse. But also the media wants people to think that when he says something that they disagree with, they want to paint him as a crazy guy who's just talking nonsense. And like, Kanye makes a lot of salient points. Again, for people who are able to read between the lines and not come up with the dumbest interpretation for everything, Kanye talks a lot of sense, right? He talks a lot of sense, and he talks about a lot of big ideas. I don't think he always expresses them with the clarity that, I don't know, say I would. Like, I'm a very clear speaker, right? Just the way I talk.
It just speaks in poems and it goes off.
Yeah, he goes off, but he's a hyper creative dude. Like, that's why he's so successful in the art world, because a lot of musicians or artists or creatives are a little bit wacko in some way, shape, or form. Like, if they're talking to just like a standard normal person, you're like, whoa, this guy's like, this guy's kind of intense, because they just got ideas, and they're just, they have 100, most people have like 1 to 3 tabs open in their brain, right? Kanye's got 40. He's got like 50 tabs. Dude. He's got 50 tabs open. He's switching between them. So one moment he's talking about fashion, then he's switching and he's talking about space, and then he's talking about shoes, and then he's talking about music, then he's talking about politics, and people are just like, oh my gosh, this guy's crazy. But if you actually sort of read between the lines of what he says, like, he makes a lot of powerful points, and he speaks very courageously, and he talks about issues that
he's smart.
People know. Yeah, and he talks about issues that people know exist, but which people don't want to broach, which people don't want to talk about, right? When he talked about the concept that he was almost aborted by his own mother, and that for a moment he almost considered pressuring his wife to abort his daughter. Nobody wants to talk about that, man. Nobody, regardless of people's views on that subject, people don't want to talk. It got real
quiet in that room when I was there.
Because that's like the A word. You said the A word, right? You're allowed to use it in certain contexts, but he just brought that out there, and the emotion behind it. And then people were saying, oh, like, look, he's crying, he's crazy. I'm like, of course he's crying. Of course he's crying. Look at what he's talking about, what he's thinking about. This is life and death. He's looking at his daughter. He's looking at his own life and thinking, wow, how could this not even exist? Like, how selfish could I have been to even consider that? That's what he's talking about, right?
Yeah.
And I love Kanye, man. Like, and it's funny because a lot of the people insulting him now are just trying to say whatever, they loved it when he was saying crazy stuff, but it was crazy stuff that was on their side.
George Bush hates black people.
Yeah, they love that, right? They love that. But, Kanye has always said stuff Kanye has always been willing to rock the boat, right? I remember most people won't remember this. I remember this is almost 20 years ago now, right? And Kanye West came out. I remember this was in, like, I don't know, maybe the late 2000s. And he basically, I don't know if it was an interview, but he was just talking about hip hop in general, American hip hop and rap. And he was just like, yo, all the homophobic stuff is not cool. Right? This is when a lot of rappers were calling, using the F word, using a lot of gay slurs, using a lot of homophobic language. And Kanye just came out and was like, yo, this isn't cool, guys. Wow. Like, why, right? And in the hip hop world, he took quite a lot of flack for that. In fact, people were like, oh, maybe he's gay, or maybe whatever, because he's wearing these pink polo shirts, right? But he was just like, no, like, gay people are just people. Like, why are we using this language?
Yeah.
Like, and he took the heat. He took the flack. He said that when it wasn't really
right.
You know,
that's really shifted. That's
Dude,
no one says the F word. You just said the F word. Like no one says that word. I should say that word. I should say that word all the time. Every other word.
Yeah.
Like probably, you know, from the culture, from rap with my friends. I didn't mean it meanly, but I would never, like, now that's really shifted. He was ahead of it.
Yeah, you wouldn't say. Exactly. Kanye was ahead of the curve.
He was ahead of
right?
it.
And he took a lot of flack. And now, musicians are now coming out saying like, oh, I'm pro LGBT. It was like, yeah, but you're doing it now because it's trendy.
Right.
Back when it wasn't trendy, you would not have taken that stance because you don't have the guts, right? You don't have the guts. Kanye has guts. He's willing, whatever the position, right? You could say that's a liberal position. You could say his pro-life stance is a more conservative position, just based on how people frame these things.
Right.
But he's always ahead of the curve, and he's willing to put his emotions and his true thoughts out there, regardless of what the mainstream narrative is, regardless of what the acceptable narrative is. And I'm like that too, right? And I will always respect that. Like, I will always respect that, because I'm just like, dude.
Yeah. And he's smart enough to identify them early. You want to know one way, and this kind of maybe leading to the next topic, one way that he rocked the boat with me recently was, I'm not very religious. And when he came out with Jesus is King, I was like, this album's awesome. And I was like, maybe I should maybe I should open my mind up about religion a little bit more. Like, what's your take on religion? You're a religious guy?
I'm a Christian. I'm a lifelong Christian.
Okay.
Like Christian, never really strayed or swayed from it.
I always think it's like, so the first question I would ask to anyone who says they're religious would be like, do you think the world is 6,000 years old?
No.
Yeah. Because I mean, it's not. There's just so many facts. But I like Jordan Peterson's kind of interpretation, where it's not about really taking it literal, but there's a lot of good messages like in the Bible. And if everyone does believe in a higher power, then they don't need to like put their power in the government or people. And I like those principles, but I still really say I'm not religious, because like the Bible has like, I don't think anyone walked on water. I don't know. What do you think?
I do, but that's different.
You do? Yeah? You think so?
Yes, I do.
Like, why has no one else ever walked on water?
Because they weren't the son of God.
And when's he coming back? When's he coming back, man? We've been waiting forever.
Man, we need him.
Any day now he's coming, or what?
We need him, man. I can't predict that. That's above my pay grade. But man, you know, religion is a really interesting conversation.
Yeah.
It's actually something that, as I get older, on a lot of levels, and as the world moves, I think about a lot. And there are some interesting ideas and hypotheses and sort of conclusions, I guess, I've come to about a lot of things. And, you know, and for me, it's something that I've always thought about in a way, because I mean, obviously I'm from a Nigerian Christian family, like very large family. And I grew up in Saudi Arabia, right? I grew up in one of the most Islamic countries in the world. So from an extremely young age, I've been surrounded by people of different faiths, different
real quick, why were you there? Like, why did you go from?
Oh, my dad got a job offer to work there back in the 80s, and we ended up staying there for 2 decades.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, I grew up in Saudi Arabia. I've got lots of Muslim friends. I've got friends of every faith and no faith, all political views and no political views. Like, I've got like a huge, I know a lot of people. But for me, it's like I've grown up with that from the beginning. So even from a young age, I've never been in this sort of, whether you're talking politically or religiously, I've never been in any echo chamber, right? So I didn't grow up. You get some people who, you know, they just grow up in the Islamic world and everyone they know is a Muslim, or you get people who grow up in like very secular places and, you know, they don't really know anyone who is religious. You get people who, I don't know, they grow up in a certain part of America or a certain part of, I don't know, South America, Africa, and, you know, everyone is a Christian and everything they know is just Christian, whatever. With me, you know, from the age of 5, I was asking my Sunday school teachers questions like, okay, well, what about my Muslim friends? Right? Because I remember...
we talked about the importance of the developmental age, a 5-year-old not being told certain things. So that's a huge advantage for you, I think.
Like I actually remember, I must have been about 9 years old at the time. I remember getting into a big argument with my Sunday school teacher because he was talking...
Pushing back even then.
Dude, that's me, man. That's how I've always been, man. That's how I've always been, right? Because he was talking about how he said that, you know, anyone who doesn't believe in the Bible and accept Jesus Christ as their savior is going to go to hell. Okay. And I was like, well, what about all the good Muslim people? And he's like, they're going to hell too. And I was like,
Dang.
I was like, that sounds odd to me, right? And we got in like this whole debate. I'm a kid here, but or I was like, well, what about people who live in places who just never even had a chance to read the Bible?
Right.
Are they going to hell? And he's like, yeah, they're going to hell too. And I was like,
it's not fair.
Yeah, I was like, that doesn't sound fair to me, right? I was like that. So from a young age, like I'm not someone who's like I don't know. I'm not someone who sort of has my faith based on just like naivety or ignorance. Like I'm totally aware of the fact that growing up in a Christian family is a large part of the reason that I'm Christian. And had I been born in Saudi Arabia and raised in a Muslim family, there's a high probability I would have been a Muslim, et cetera. Like I'm aware of that and I accept that. But yeah, like my sort of religious views, and I'm sure that would change and evolve and develop over time, but they're not, I'm not the type of person where it just sort of stems from, like, hopefully this is obvious, from, it's not just stemming from a sort of ignorance or naivety.
Just someone telling you and you believe
not
it.
knowing. No, like I have these debates, like some of my best friends are like atheists, and we have these conversations, right? We sit there and, we're having like two Oxford University graduates are here debating like the origins of the world and
I love it.
The meaning and purpose and all, right? And so I understand both sides. And I actually think that anybody who is smart and open-minded should not massively struggle to understand, say, why someone, like, I don't find it hard to understand why somebody wouldn't believe in God.
Okay.
So I believe in God, but I don't find it remotely difficult to understand and empathize with somebody not believing in God. Like I could make a fantastic atheistic argument.
Yeah.
Even though it's not my position, right? I could probably make a better atheistic argument than most atheists could, right? Because I've had so many of these conversations and discussions and debates, and I do understand. And even as a believer, there are questions I have. Every believer has questions. Every believer who's critically thinking, we all have questions of like, okay, well, what about that? Or what about that? Mm-hmm. Or, there are certain passages in the Bible where you're like, this passage is, either it seems somewhat contradictory to another one, or it seems kind of like, God seems very loving and kind here and very harsh and quite brutal here and this and that. So like, there are a lot of questions, and I don't have all the answers. I'm not a theologian. Like I have a lot of questions that I have, and with things I'm trying to discover. But ultimately, it comes down to a matter of faith. And I also think, given the amount of religions in the world, I do also think that the concept of God, I think that's something like Jordan Peterson kind of talks about, right? I think the concept of God is not even something we can truly comprehend. So I think whatever human beings believe and whatever our concept of God, and people have lots of different concepts, even if people are of the same faith, I don't think it's something that we can ever truly understand, right? Just like we sort of know what infinity is, but we can't really, like, nothing we know is nothing we know is infinite, right? Nothing we know is infinite, right? Everything has a start and it has an end. So we know if I say to you infinite or infinity, you know what it means. But if you really think about it deep, it's not a concept you can properly fathom, because it doesn't really make sense. It's like, wait, so it never began, and it never, right. Like,
so I know exactly what you mean, and you're saying God's kind of like that.
Yeah, to me, God is like infinity, and then in like multiple dimensions. So I don't even think that. So I think that when we talk about certain abstractions of God, and it's interesting because this has always happened. Religion's been around for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, right? And people sort of typically moved from, so if you look at certain sort of tribal religions or pagan religions, it's like, there's a sun god and a water god and a wind god and all these things. So it's like polytheism. And then there's also the concept of pantheism, which is like God is in everything, so God is in animals and in plants and in nature and in the river, the spirit's kind of in everything. And then you've also got the abstraction, which is simpler, of like monotheism. So, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, where it's, one God. It's not, the one God is the sun God, is the river God, is the animal God, etc. Right.
Right.
But I don't, I'm kind of like, I'm very much thinking out loud here, by the way.
I love it.
And there's probably going to be people who are like, whether they are religious or are not religious, who are probably going to be quite annoyed by some of these thoughts. But these are the things I think about. So I think that human beings, just like with a lot of things, we have to put things in a way that we can even comprehend and understand them. And I think that because a lot of people, a big argument that an atheist would sort of have against me oftentimes will be like, okay, well, why Christianity? How do you know your, right? Even if you believe in God, what makes you think your specific
That's
religion,
a big Ricky Gervais one that he says.
Yeah, exactly. What makes you think your specific religion is the correct one,
the right answer or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that,
what makes you think that?
It's a fantastic question. I think it's actually a fantastic question. I think it's a fantastic question. And I think at some,
what's the answer?
Yeah, look, I think at some point, things do come down to faith, and things do come down to belief, right? And I also think that, and again, this might annoy some religious people, but I do think that certainly if you're talking about the monotheistic religions, I believe we all worship the same God in different ways.
Okay.
Right.
I could get behind that. I could get behind that before God in every single thing.
Yeah. So some people would say that, Allah is different from God. Right. To me, Allah is just the word for God in Arabic. So, I mean, Christian,
I like that.
Christian. Yeah. I mean, Arab Christians call God Allah.
Right.
Right. That's just the word in the language.
Just the word. Yeah.
For God. Right. So I don't think that there's a Christian God and a Jewish. I mean, I think people already know, like, the Jewish God and the Christian God, are the same. But like, there's not like a Jewish God, a Christian God, and a Muslim God. I think we are all worshiping the same God in different ways, right? So you pray 5 times a day and face Mecca, right? This person goes to mass and takes Holy Communion and, crosses themselves. This person wears a kippah and they do certain Jewish rituals, etc. You have your holy day on Friday. We have ours on Sunday. They have theirs on Saturday.
Right.
There are certain traditions and rules and things like that which are different, which you're doing to honor God and to abide by the religion. But I think that, and these things change, based on geographical location and history, and they're tied into culture, and it's a complex topic.
Yeah,
it's actually
I like
a very
that.
complex
I
topic.
like that. I mean, I feel like being atheist is kind of the easiest in a way, because I don't know. It's just like walk on water. I don't think he did. I've never seen anyone else walk on water. Him wiping everybody out in like Noah's Ark. I can't really imagine that. You can imagine humans like writing these stories. Evolution, it kind of explains a lot of that stuff. But if I were going to follow some of these things and think about, I think what you're explaining about everyone having one God makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I certainly. I mean, that's something I've believed from childhood. I've always thought, like, okay, we're all worshiping the same God in different ways. Because again, I grew up in a Muslim country, right? 99.9% Muslim country. So I'm seeing and even if you look at the main teachings of religions, there's a lot of commonality. Right? The details and the certain stories can be quite different. There is an overlap. There's a big overlaps, but the sort of core tenets and the meaning and the purpose and all of that, like, it tends to strongly overlap, whether that's in terms of the way you should treat other people, or what you should do in terms of marriage and in terms of having children, how you should act in society, certain rules you should follow, or, with 10 commandments, all that kind of stuff. Right. And it's still very much relevant, right? It's still very much relevant. I mean, if somebody is a Christian, like as a Christian, like if someone wanted to kind of, in terms of like day-to-day life, if you do just think like, okay, if you look at the central figure of Christianity, Jesus Christ, and if someone's view of Christianity is as simple as like, I'm going to try to live my life like Jesus. Right. You'll, yeah, right. Like, that's good. Right?
It's a good thing.
I'm going to try to follow the 10 commandments, and I'm going to try to like, just think, okay, what would Jesus do?
That's my favorite argument for religion. Like, if it makes people better, it makes society better, it makes your life better, it makes his life better, it makes her life better. And I can get behind that. And yeah, Kanye's the one that like kind of made me rethink it all. So I love this. I love the conversation. That's,
yeah, no doubt. I got one more thing I want to say actually.
Yeah, go for it.
And one more thing, and this is something that I've really realized over the last few years, really realized, especially in this time we live in, which is that human beings are built to worship. Human beings are inherently religious.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So even like some of the most religious people I know are atheists.
Right. Who do they worship? Somebody probably.
They worship so a lot of them worship
hopefully
the
government.
Some of them worship the state. Some of them worship some of them worship certain political ideologies, certain social ideologies. Some of them worship certain diets. Some of them worship certain social movements, right?
LeBron James, maybe.
Some of them worship the science, right? How many people are the science is now a religion, right? Science? A lot of stuff, but gosh, man, have we lived on the same earth for the past year? People are talking about science like it's a religion now.
Yeah, like I believe in science. I believe in science. Okay, that's what you mean.
I believe in science is a religious statement.
Right. Oh, God.
Right. And I believe in science is think about it.
Right. That's that's what they're worshiping. But there's so much conflict in science.
That's not how science works.
Right. You need a hypothesis, and then people have to test it, and then people define disagreements with it.
If I'm not allowed to question your stance on masks, or I'm not allowed to question your stance on that's dogma.
Right.
That's not science. Like science, you ask questions, right? Science isn't afraid of questions, right? So once people don't want to even allow certain questions, or they're trying to censor people's, I'm like, that's not scientific, man. Like that's you trying to protect your own religious belief, right? And now instead of prophets, you're talking about the experts.
Right.
I trust the experts. I have faith in
they become the disciples or something.
I've even heard people say, I believe in masks. I'm like, what the heck does that mean? I'm like, that is right. And 2 minutes later, that person will be like, talking about like religion on there. I'm like, dude, your position is very religious, right? And it's happened with political ideologies in the past, right? Going back to the 20th century, they instituted state atheism. Why? Because they wanted people to believe in communism.
Right.
They wanted people to worship the state, etc. So you have to supplant the other thing people are already worshing to bring them to worship the new thing.
You want to know something else people are worshiping now, and I want to ask you about is Bitcoin. Like, would you agree that there's definitely some worshipers out there?
Yeah, there's some cultish people out there.
Definitely.
Some of the Bitcoin maximalists can get very aggressive about it.
Like, you have some Bitcoin?
I might.
That's the thing. I heard, like in the community.
I might have for like 4 years or something.
Yeah. I got a couple. They're doing amazing. I own two, and
he's open about it.
yeah. I feel like in the community. I had a Bitcoin guy on my podcast, and I asked him, like, how many do you have? He's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'll tell you. I have 1.78232. But
they're pretty quiet about it.
Yeah, but every time I talk about Bitcoin, the conversation usually goes like, well, it's a vulnerable asset. Maybe put some of your money in there and see if it grows. But then I hear some other people, like maybe these worship people, that talk about how it's like the future of freedom and like the future of it's more religious, like in the way that they look at it. Yes. And I'm curious if you have like an opinion on that.
Yeah, well, I think that sort of follows on from what I'm saying. So
about the worshiping in general, right? But,
yeah, like look, when I'm saying that like human beings are religious, I don't necessarily like there's two definitions of religion. Actually, there's two definitions of religious, right? So if someone says I go to the gym religiously, that doesn't mean that they're going in there with prayer beads and they're kneeling on the ground, right? You know what it means, right?
It means they go a lot.
So yeah, it means that they have a certain like dedication and passion and allegiance to this thing that goes beyond just like a normal habit.
Right.
So I think with Bitcoin, like
people think it can change the world, like it can get rid of government currencies.
Yeah, I mean, I think the potential of Bitcoin is huge. I think it's huge. I don't think I would go as far as some of the sort of super evangelists and the hardcore Bitcoin maximalists who kind of would even get angry if you mentioned the word Ethereum or Cardano or any other altcoin or something. Like I'm not sort of that deep.
I just want there to be one.
Right? Yeah. Like I'm not that deep into it. Like I think, I do evangelize Bitcoin a little bit because I think it's a huge asymmetrical bet and a gigantic opportunity, especially for our own generation, to build generational wealth and to take back some power from the state, take back power from governments, take back power from the central banks and the Fed, and also just to have more autonomy and freedom and personal responsibility, be able to transact above borders, protect ourselves from inflation, et cetera. Like there's a lot of things that I think are super compelling about Bitcoin for sure.
Yeah. Dude, here on Monday, the bank was closed because it was President's Day. I was so mad. Just like, I don't know. I had some like money coming in from sales and I was trying to like do a wire payment. Like the bank is closed. And that was just like so frustrating. I'm like, why? It's Monday. And then Bitcoin would be the answer to that. Like transaction fees, like so many things about it are so exciting.
And globally, you're not having to, transfer. You know, you want to send money to someone in Nigeria, boom, what's your Bitcoin address? You want to send money to someone anywhere, boom, 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 right? Just simple, we need to have to do these transaction fees and they got 5 days. We need to wait 5 days for this thing to clear.
I hate all that.
Do that. Yeah. Like it's, I think Bitcoin is that's a whole big conversation in itself, but I think Bitcoin fixes a lot of problems that we have from a lot of different angles, social angles, political angles, economic angles. I think Bitcoin is, I think it's a beautiful concept.
And I love what you said about it's our generation's like opportunity. That makes me actually get like kind of shivery because that's true. Yeah, like imagine, and that's why I tell some people, I'm like, get a little maybe, because you'd hate to look back and be like, I missed out on this.
It's an asymmetrical bet, man. Like I think at this stage, the risk of not owning any Bitcoin is way bigger than the risk of owning Bitcoin.
Agreed.
People tell me Bitcoin is risky. I'm like, look, everything has a risk, but there's also a risk to not doing it. Right. I remember when I left my job in 2011. I used to be a management consultant. I left to go pursue my music full time almost 10 years ago now. And people were like, oh my gosh, but risk. And I was like, but what's the risk of me staying here?
Yeah.
Right. What's the risk of me being 10 years later, 20 years later, 30 years later, and I'm kicking myself. I'm feeling deep regret because I never went out and pursued my creative career. I never went out and pursued.
Imagine dying on your deathbed and thinking, I wish I would have done that. Yeah, I mean, I'm like you. I quit at my job, and I was in my mom's basement, and now I have like 18 employees. Business is going great. And the risk, I thought the same thing as you. Like, what if I don't do this? I'll hate myself. Yep. I mean, on that note, kind of last topic, like this is kind of like I talk about entrepreneurship a lot. Like your business, the business of Zuby, right? So how's it going? Like you got your music. I know you sold a book. I know you got the podcast. Like, how do you look at yourself as like a business model, and where do you see it going in the future?
It's a great question, man. So I mean, I've kind of got 4 main things that I do. You hit 3 of them. I also do coaching as well. I'd say those are kind of like my main. Yeah. So I do, all my music stuff and merchandising, everything that comes with that, live events when I'm allowed to. Right. And then, of course, I got my podcast, Real Talk with Zuby. Got my book, fitness book, Strong Advice, Zuby's Guide to Fitness for Everybody, which is, sold approaching 5,000 copies now, totally independently, which is awesome.
Independently, then, congratulations. Man.
Yep, it's not even on Amazon. And then, and then I've got my do my coaching as well. So the way I look at it, man, is everything just ties into my overall mission, which is that I want to have a positive impact on over 10 million people before I leave. Right?
I love it. That's specific. That's always good with a goal.
Specific. Minimum 10 million plus people. I want 10 million plus people to feel sad when I die. Let's put it that way.
Okay? That's a good way to put
it. So everything I do ties into that. So this conversation we are having here, this ties into that, right?
Right.
I hope, people go away from this and they take something positive from it. They learn something. There's something in there that we've said, I've said, you said, something impacts them. Same with my music. I know my music has a positive impact on people. It inspires people. It motivates people. I love all that. Coaching, sort of self-explanatory.
Yeah.
The fitness book,
and you teach them. Yeah.
Yep. Fitness book, similar, right? Helping people improve their mindset, improve their bodies, improve their physique. I've got people who have read my book and said, man, I bought your book in September. I've lost 50 pounds. Amazing. Thank you. Right. So everything I do and everything I'm going to do is towards that goal.
Okay.
So that's as simple as it is for me. So if I think, okay, if someone wants me to do something, I'm like, is this going to bring me closer to that or not? And if the answer is yes, then I'm happy to consider it. If the answer is no, then it's like, okay, well, that's not going to help.
And where do you look at like money in that equation as far as like how much byproduct? It's just a tool to get to you to that, right?
The more people I help, the more money I make.
There you go. There you go.
Simple as that. Like money is when I stopped thinking about money in terms of I want to make X amount or I want to make money, like when I stopped thinking about it like that and I started thinking of how can I help more people and how can I impact more people with my skills, with my talents, with my experience, with my abilities. When I switched thinking that, when I switched over that thinking, I 5x my income in a year.
Dang.
That's what made me write my fitness book.
That's
I've
awesome.
been going to the gym for longer than I've been rapping.
Yeah.
Why didn't I write a fitness book 10 years ago?
Right.
Right. I wrote my fitness book. Is like, oh, wow. Okay. And then my fitness book has generated 6 figures.
Right. Right.
Just
It's
a book,
something,
right?
it's something you're knowledgeable in.
I'm knowledgeable about it. People want
money.
it. It helps people. You know, how many people in the world want to get in better shape? Billions.
Right.
Right. I could sell, you know, it depends on how I market. Like I could sell, like, you know, if it would market it amazingly, you know, 100 million copies of that book. It's
right.
relevant to over 100 million people. It's relevant to billions of people. So, and I have that knowledge, which is a specialist knowledge a lot of people don't have. Most people don't really know what they're doing in the gym. Most people don't know how to structure a diet. Most people don't know how many calories you need, how much protein, what exercises to do, et cetera. I know all that. So I'm like, okay, let me put something together, help people. Most people can't rap. Most people don't know how to make music. Most people can't write songs, et cetera. I can. So it's my duty. It's my ethical duty to put out music. Right. I'm a good speaker. I'm an articulate speaker. I have a sharp brain. I'm good at conversations. It is my duty to talk to you. It's my duty to talk to Joe Rogan. It's my duty to do all of these things because by people listening, it helps other people. So that's how I look at it. And it's why I'm not afraid of, I've been criticized for the past 15 years for self-promoting too much. Right? Zuby's always self-promoting. Zuby wears
Joe Rogan said that to you on your shirt.
Right? Zuby wears, people have said it to me since I was in university. I used to go around university wearing an I'm down with Zuby, are you t-shirt everywhere. Everyone in university knew who I was. Right? And I'm like, yeah, of course I'm going to self-promote because what I'm promoting is awesome and it helps people. And if you're promoting something that helps people, it is your duty. There's nothing dirty about selling it. If I promote my book, there's nothing dirty about it. I want people to buy it. Like you should buy it because by buying it and reading it, it will make your life better. So I have to promote it. And that's how I look at everything.
That's honorable, man. I mean, yeah, my main business is like I sell clothing, girls' clothing. We found a great niche, and like we help those people by looking good that day, I guess. But it's not as honorable. So that's maybe that's subconsciously why I wanted to start a podcast. This is episode 84 of my podcast. I think maybe that was like pulling at me a little bit that I want to do more to help people, and maybe you just helped me realize that. So. Yeah. Oh, dude.
But the truth is, man, if you're doing good business, then you are
hiring people.
You are helping people. You know, some stuff is more obvious and direct than other things are. But unless you're working in some like, you know, very sort of shifty or dodgily, you know, maybe not so ethical industry, then for the most part, you know, if you're offering services and products that people need and or want, then you're helping people. Even if you're just an entertainer, you know, a musician, a rapper, a singer, a dancer, or whatever, on some, you know, a sports player, right? It might seem like, oh, you're not, you know, it might seem like, oh, this American football player or this basketball player is not really offering much to society. You know, some people are, oh, this guy's overpaid. Why is he being paid millions or what? I'm like, dude, this person is impacting and inspiring and entertaining millions of people around the world, using an extremely rare skill that most people don't have, right? Just when you get people like, oh, how come sports players are paid more than nurses? And I'm like, dude, like, come on, do you even economics,
the impact,
right? And this is not to and this is not to put down a nurse at all. Nurses are important, but the number of people who can be LeBron James versus the number of people who can be nurses, you know, it's a million to one. Right. So of course that person is going to, you know, be paid more. A better question would be like, why does society like and value basketball so much? That's a better question. Not why are they paid so much, right? Like, that's the better question. You know, not why is he paid so much? Well, I don't know. Why do you guys like basketball so much?
Yeah. If you were that good, would you not be trying to pursue an NBA career? Like, come on now.
Straight up.
So that's amazing, dude. Oh man, dude, thank you so much for coming on. This has been, I've had some good people on my podcast. This might be my favorite episode though. So
oh wow. That's an honor.
And I got the purple lights behind me to kind of rock your style. I know you got the purple going.
It,
so
I saw it.
All right, dude. Any final words?
No, not really. If people want to check me out online, I've mentioned a lot of my stuff here. I've got my podcast, Real Talk with Zuby. You can find that on all the usual platforms. Same with my music. Just search ZUBY. You'll find me. And you can find me on all social media, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, at Zuby Music, ZUBY Music.
Zuby, it's been a pleasure, man. Thanks for coming on the Sean Lowery Show.